Welcome to the Natural Kitchen. My name is Christine Waltermeyer, and this is a place where we talk about healthy cooking and how it can make a positive difference in your life. And today I'm talking with Sunny Jain. Mr. Jain is the CEO of a company called Floré by Sun Genomics. And I'm going to let Mr. Jain take it away to share more with you about why he started Sun Genomics. So welcome. Welcome, Sunny.
Thank you, Christine. It's a pleasure to chat with you today and get an opportunity to chat with your audience as well. I can tell you a little bit about my background. I'm at foremost a father, and second a scientist, and now an entrepreneur and founder of a company. And the company was founded because my son was having gut health issues. And I just happened to have the skill sets to do something more directly about it and analyze his gut sample and start testing different molecular technologies and really running the gambit on his labs to see if there was something I could do to help. And my background is in clinical diagnostics, worked for a small startup, then worked for a reference lab called LabCorp for a little while, and then a DNA sequencing company for about 7 years called Illumina, where I got the fortunate chance of sequencing the first clinical human genome in a CLIA/CAP certified lab, and learned a lot about just understanding our human genetics and genomics. And then since 2016, I've been on this amazing journey about understanding the other half of our bodies, which is our microbial genetics that interact with our human genetics.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's so great you were able to help your son. What a touching story that's really what inspired this journey. And I know you're
Yeah,
helping so many other people now through your work.
yeah, it's just sort of fell into my lap, I guess, to use another child kind of phrase there. When his gut system didn't quite work the way we anticipated, he's about 6 months old or so then. Now he's about 4. He was having painful stool and bowel movements, and we noticed it. And you take him to the doctor at that age, and they're too young for medications. Now this is all me kind of drinking from the fire hose, learning as a first-time parent, like what to do in these particular situations. And they recommended take a probiotic. So I thought this is something as a dad I could do. I run to the natural food store. You get to the probiotic section, and this is what I call the wall of probiotic confusion. It is just really intimidating. Thousands of options apparently to choose from at this point. And there's like a section that's like refrigerated, and then there's a whole nother section non-refrigerated. There are different strains on these different bottles, and I have a background in microbiology. I would assume I could have figured this out, and I didn't leave the store figuring it out, but I did grab every single bottle of probiotic off the shelf that day and started testing them in my lab to try to figure this out for my son.
Wow, that's so interesting that with your background, you were able to actually test them out and see like, are these live? Are they working? That kind of thing. So fascinating. Now, a lot of us are kind of on board with probiotics, realizing the importance. I know Whole Foods predicted that in 2021, the microbiome is going to be one of these popular topics. People are realizing that our gut is behind, so many other health issues, the health of our gut. So, if people are out there looking for a probiotic, what would you say? Why is it important to have probiotics custom made rather than the typical probiotics that are available?
So the most important data set I've ever looked at in my life was the whole microbiome analysis of my son's stool sample. And we did it with 2 different methods. One was 16S, and it only gave like a really low resolution answer. Like you can think of it like looking at TV with those rabbit ear antennas on it. It's really low resolution versus if you use this whole genome method and actually get all the A, C, Gs, and Ts sequenced down to the species level, then you actually have this really crisp resolution that you can think of that as like your 4K TV or your 5K TV now, I think. that they have on the market. Just an amazing resolution down to the strain level. And you also get viruses, bacteria, phages, other parasites that are potentially in the gut system. So from there, I started to question, like, wow, there's hundreds of unique species I've never seen before here. Why am I seeing all this for the first time? I wanted to understand what was normal. So I started downloading data sets from the American Gut Project, that was co-founded by our advisor, Dr. Jack Gilbert, and learned a ton about what you could presumably call healthy data sets of people that have reported not having issues, and then just put them together as a data set and say, okay, this is what generally people's gut microbiome looks like. Now there's variability there as well. But then as I compare the two, I could tell that it was a dramatic difference. And then even as we started to compare healthy individuals, we saw that there was a substantial difference in the species level calls that were being made for the bacteria or the other organisms of the gut. And now that was like 5 years ago, and the science is just on an exponential curve. Now we know that your gut microbiome may be as much as 90% unique between two individuals. And to put that into perspective, your human genetics, or your human DNA, the DNA of yourself, between each other, we're the same species. Each person is still in the human species here, is 99.9% similar. So you're very identical from your DNA, human DNA genomics perspective. Your DNA of the microbes of your gut, or your microbiome, vastly different between individuals. And so that was the foundation for why we believe and now understand that probiotics and solutions need to really be customized to that gut microbiome ecosystem for you to get, maximal nutrition, and to actually, potentially avoid issues and chronic conditions later in life as well. And that way can only really be achieved through customization of your probiotics. If you go to the store and just pick something off the shelf, the odds that it matches your 90% unique microbiome is very slim. It's kind of like throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping you get lucky. You may, and that's why you kind of hear sometimes people saying, oh my gosh, I tried this probiotic, it works so great. That was the one time it worked, but then they recommend it to 10 of their friends, and they'll lose 9 of their friends because they'll realize it doesn't work for them.
So interesting. Yeah. And I guess it's possible even to get too much of something that maybe you have enough in your gut already. And then if you take kind of a generic type of probiotic that's meant for anyone, maybe you could get too much of one particular strain of bacteria. Is that possible?
Yeah, the concentrations that we report out on the Sun Genomics report actually tells you the relative abundance of that organism relative to the other organisms of your gut. And probiotics is definitely the area that we can see the concentration. So if you had a high concentration of Bifidobacteria longum, then we would know that that particular organism, which is benefiting you for like digestive health and avoiding issues like constipation or even just general wellness in the gut system, you don't need more of that organism. So don't go to the store and buy 60 billion CFUs of Bifidobacteria longum, because that's not going to solve what may be what the benefit that you're looking for. Maybe you're looking for something to relieve some energy or fatigue issues. That's not going to be the source for that. You need to look at the other microbes of the gut that are impacting your energy levels, and then stimulate the growth and nutrient supply for those.
All right, great to know, boy. And I'm sure you've heard of some amazing success stories of people trying your product, trying the custom-made, Floré probiotics. So are there any that stand out that you could think of?
Yeah, sure. These are N of 1 stories, and like my sons, I find N of 1 to be very powerful. I mean, I can see the inflammatory microbes of his gut having been decreased after taking the probiotics. And so everybody in my family is now on these custom probiotics, by the way. So it is, it is this N of one stories that we're really building, the empirical evidence over time that we're building. And one of those amazing stories that we got to have shared with us from a customer was a Muay Thai fighter and a trainer. She trained children and teenagers on Muay Thai fighting, and would go to these competitions and championships, national championships. And for the longest time, she wasn't able to practice with her students for over a decade. And then she began our product, and almost within like a couple weeks, she began to enjoy some of the activities that she had previously been able to do. She was having more chronic fatigue type of issues that were limiting her ability to actually participate in these types of activities. And she had a number of people that talked to her about her health, but couldn't help her because the gut health was really the thing that was at the root of her issues. And so she had trouble with breathing, brain focus, mood, bowel movements, weight, and bloating. And so it was just amazing to hear her story of how she got back to training, how she got back to being able to run outdoors and have some endurance exercise as well. So we're just super supportive of stories and that customers have given us back from their benefit of the product, and it's great to hear them.
Wow, that is great to hear that she, got her health back and something that she enjoyed so much, the martial arts. Wow, it's amazing. Now, how about when it comes to diet? I know that, I went ahead with the test and it was so wonderful, that someone actually took so much time over the phone with me to talk about my results and also share, dietary tips, which I thought was so amazing, that level of customer support. So can you say a little bit about how our diet impacts the microbiome?
Sure. So everything we eat and breathe in, it's going through our windpipe, and that's going down into also our esophagus there, and then it's going into our stomach and our digestive system, right? So the air environment and the food that we eat are actually coming into contact with our digestive system and our gut microbiome, into the intestinal tract of our body. So right after the stomach and the duodenum, and the transition from your stomach to your small intestinal tract, that's where all these microbes live, and including in the colon and the large intestine. So being able to feed those in a very specific way, in a deliberate way, can really hone in our gut microbiota and the ecosystem that's created there. So if you eat things that are high in sugar, or meal preps that have macronutrients that are unfavorable for the microbe population in your gut system, then you're going to begin to have an unfavorable shift in your gut microbiome, what they call a dysbiosis. But if you eat the favorable macronutrients, then you'll have a better shift in your microbiome. So what is favorable? Favorable would be things like cruciferous vegetables, vegetable fibers in general, making sure you eat your healthy leafy greens as part of a reasonable portion, and I would say almost the substantial portion of each meal. Making sure you get good clean protein and low in saturated fat proteins. So that could be things like fish, chicken, turkey, and you could try other animal proteins, but try to look for proteins that are low in saturated fat or leaner meats. And then also plant-based proteins are an excellent source of proteins. So that could be things like tofu or soybeans or lentils, legumes, and use those in sort of a mix and combination with the diet. And then looking at things like fruits and fruit fibers, and look at things that have high fiber content, like a blueberry, which have polyphenols and also your high fiber content in them, or look at nuts as an alternative for protein and also getting those healthy those healthy fats in the gut system. So when you put those sort of super nutrients together in your meal prep, it can go a long ways for the microbiota and the gut microbes. As opposed to when you add things like glucose and sugar, you'll drive up the concentration of organisms like C. difficile, which is a toxin of the gut microbiome that's sort of ubiquitous. It's all over the place. Versus you put in healthy fibers from, let's say, arugula, and you drive up the concentration of Faecalibacterium prausnitzii, and that produces butyrate in the gut system. And then the butyrate helps line your intestinal tract and keep that barrier between the gut and the tissue outside, and the gut-blood barrier intact. So those are some of the things that we have kind of observed that, and also read up on the science, that it's really important to keep track of in your food prep, in your recipe prep, that may go a long ways for you. But we don't believe that you need to dial that all the way down into individual sort of ingredients. So we haven't seen that level of science yet. But if you do it at that macronutrient level and put those healthy ingredients together, you'll see it go a long ways for your gut microbiome.
Great to know. Okay. And we probably have to watch the saturated fat a bit too. I know, even on plant-based diets, it's easy to kind of, get a lot of that coconut, oil and things like that. And maybe too much of that is not so great either for the
Yeah,
microbiome.
there was a definite fad, I think, on coconut oil or coconut cooking, coconut-based cooking. And wow, it tastes really good. I was just talking to my wife about this the other day. It smells really good and it tastes really good. But you look at the label of that product, and it's 50% saturated fat per the serving. And if you choose something like algae oil or even olive oil or avocado oil, those have way less saturated fat. And so depending on your cooking temperature, you can choose these more healthy cooking oils that still have a reasonable amount of flavor, and maybe think of alternative ways to kind of get that same flavor with spices.
Great tip. Okay. Now, how about fermented food? When it comes to fermented food, I know that some, especially fermented food advocates, will say like, "Oh, you can get everything you need from, raw sauerkraut and kombucha and things like that." What would you say to that?
Yeah, the level of probiotic that we supply is in the billions of CFU. So the average customer will get a single capsule that has everything they need: probiotics, prebiotics, and botanicals, all customized into a single capsule. And that's going to be at a concentration of 60 billion colony forming units, or CFU, per gram. And it can go all the way up to 120 billion CFU per gram. So there's quite a bit of range and that's optimized to the individual. But that amount is probably equivalent to a football field of kimchi or some of these other fermented foods. So there is some value in kimchi from a different perspective, or yogurt, or these fermented foods, or kombucha. That's actually the end product of some of the fermentation that takes place in the gut microbiome. So you're actually feeding these really nice nutrients to the gut microbiome by eating these fermented foods that can allow other organisms in the gut system to flourish and feed off of that supply of nutrients. So bifidobacteria in general, they're a genus, will thrive where there's this fermented food intake, and you'll see the increase in bifidobacterium in the gut. Other organisms may also increase when eating certain fermented foods. So from a value of feeding the other gut microbes, we think it's really good. But if you're looking for it to be your probiotic source, it's sort of a low concentration source of probiotics.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's also illuminating information. That's great. I feel like there's so much I want to ask you. It's really hard to narrow it down to just these few questions, but also, lifestyle factors. How are some ways that the microbiome gets altered in unhealthy ways? Like, do we have to be concerned about bathing in chlorinated water and things like that? Are there lifestyle factors that impact our microbiome negatively?
Yeah, the science has now helped us understand what are the impacts to things in our environment and lifestyle, right? If we are ingesting particular types of impurities, that, again, that's gonna come in contact with the gut microbiota, because that's living inside the intestinal tract, and it's actually the interface right before the underlying epithelial cells where absorption occurs. So for absorption to occur, it still needs to go through your microbiota. They're kind of the intermediate there. And if you begin to absorb some of these chemicals that can be toxic, like chlorine, may have a negative impact to the gut microbiota, then that's going to change the shape of the microbiota there and potentially leads you to a dysbiosis. So antibiotic usage is already known to do that. That doesn't mean that antibiotics are bad. It just means that when you're on antibiotics, you're going to have to be aware that it's sort of leveling everything. It's taking out your good and your bad microbes of the gut, and it becomes sort of a race to rebuild your gut afterwards. And so you want to, right after you're done with antibiotics, you want to make sure you're flushing in some good, healthy gut microbes, and also eating really healthy during that period of time. For a couple of weeks as you restructure your microbiome back. But there can be other things. There can be things even like a physical impact to the gut system can cause a dysbiosis or negative impact. There are ways in which the gut-lung system interact, and so just breathing in impurities can cause a dysbiosis. And so we just have to be aware of the environmental factors and aware of some of these other things that we're ingesting. But one thing you can do from a lifestyle perspective is exercise. And exercise has been shown to really drive up some of these healthy microbes like Akkermansia mucinophilia and Methanobrevibacter smithii that produce energy in the gut system. So it's actually like the more energy that you spend, you're actually getting that back in your gut microbiome, and that you get that increased metabolism from the gut microbiome as well.
Interesting. I wasn't aware of that, the impact of exercise actually upon the microbiome. So great to know. Now, what are some health aspects that would be tied in with the microbiome that maybe people are unaware of? For example, how does your microbiome affect our mood?
Yeah, Christine, this is some of the newest science that's really come out in the last couple of years. There's now a definitive association to the gut-brain axis. And as I was talking about the intestinal tract and the microbes that are living inside of there, there's really this communication interface that's actually happening where microbes in the gut, they're releasing something, they're called postbiotics or metabolites. And then those small little molecules are actually like what I call text messages going across this interface. Your epithelial cells are receiving them. And then right behind that is this tissue called the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, or the MALT, mucose-associated lymphoid tissue. They house immune cells, but you also have the vagus nerve that is closely associated with the intestinal tract. And so there's this whole sort of system biology's view of, okay, there's communication happening from the gut microbiota, and these text messages are coming out into the communication barrier, and they're being translated, and then they're being read on the other side. And then what is the other side saying back, and how is that influencing the gut microbiota? Are they releasing cytokines or other metabolites back into the gut system? Are they triggering an inflammation cascade pathway? So these are some of the things that we're starting to dive into on the deep science side, and academic science are really working on the gut-brain axis. But they have shown neurotransmitter release into the gut system, serotonin, GABA, dopamine, just to name a few, that could impact and could be part of that impact of the neurobiology or the mood. And so a lot of serotonin, I think 70% of the serotonin of the body is actually produced in the intestinal tract, which, as you can imagine, would impact mood. And we're just still on the beginnings of understanding just how that mechanism works.
So much fascinating information that's really, like you say, we're just starting to understand. It's so great. And And even the impact for parents of, I know my daughter has special needs, I wonder, how that relates as well. So it's a very interesting topic. Mhm.
Christine. We're also very engaged with the research community around what are ways that we can help in disorders, or what are ways that we can help in things that have now closer associations to the microbiome. And one of those ways, or one of those collaborations that we're working on very, I guess, very aligned on the research side, is with ASU, Arizona State University, where we've launched the largest early stage clinical trial around the gut microbiome and autism spectrum disorder. So we're excited to be able to even take something that's like a health and wellness product and take some of those proceeds and drive it towards some of these amazing scientists that are working on the gut microbiome and other conditions or other disorders that can really help people in the future.
That's so wonderful to hear. Yeah, there's probably so many areas, even dementia, and things like that, that could be, who knows, improved with just increased gut health, microbiome health.
Yeah, the name of the game is longevity, and if we can help our brains stay healthy and aware, that will go a long ways. And there's certainly a lot of evidence for longevity in the gut microbiome as well. So we're trying to stay on top of it all as it comes out, and hopefully people will get a first early view of their gut microbiome as it relates to those things too, as they go through the system and kind of see their gut profiles.
Wonderful. Okay. So, what would you say your vision is, like the best case scenario that you would like to see happening in the world right now in 2021? What would you say your vision is for people's health and well-being?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has already begun. I think people are now, our goal has been really to democratize this, bring this out from the hundreds of thousands of scientific journals that have been published around the gut microbiome, and bring products to the customers that can actually help them in a preventative way, because we understand that the microbiome is related to diabetes and arthritis and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and obesity and all these chronic conditions. But if we leave it in this research realm, it may take decades before we can begin to actualize some benefits. And so we want to democratize this type of information, make it available to the general consumer, be able to guide the general consumer with the latest science, so that they can actually be informed and make decisions to potentially prevent some of these long-term issues. Our goal, and one of the things that we're looking to do is to cure all dysbiosis. That's the vision of Sun Genomics. And today's probiotics are just the start of it. And we believe there's going to be new probiotic strains on the market to really provide that precision approach to your gut microbiome and dial it in even further. From a father perspective, I believe every child at birth should have their gut microbiome done. You should be done in regular intervals, and maybe every 3 months, maybe at every checkup, just to make sure your early microbiota isn't put into a dysbiosis and disrupted by some of these toxic producing microbes of the gut, and allow you to take a quick intervention if needed, if you do detect any of those. And that could really shift the fate of your gut microbiome as well. And it's something that we can do today, and the information is available.
Yeah, and that's so great that you have the testing available, that we have that ability to just, find out ourselves, like what exactly is going on in there and what do I need. So I love that that's a regular part of I don't know if you want to share a little bit about how it works with Floré by Sun Genomics, with your people getting regularly shipped, products, customized products, and the testing.
Sure, it's pretty simple. You can just go online to sungenomics.com, which will soon be floré.com, and it's $99 a month. You subscribe, and the first month you'll get the gut test, and you collect a microstool sample. We are talking about poop here, and that's where we can actually understand what's going on in your intestinal tract. You send that back. to the Sun Genomics lab, and we take it from there. We'll extract the DNA, do all the DNA sequencing of the gut microbes, and then produce a report back for you on the portal, as well as we have a mobile app where you can engage with all the information and learn more about custom recipes and other things related to gut health. And then you'll be put into sort of our manufacturing software and our software for understanding the current science, and you'll get an opportunity to talk to our health goal call scientific liaison, where you can help us understand, what are you looking to achieve? Are you feeling tired? Are you feeling bloated? Do you have some gassiness or stomach pains or something going on that we can even dial in the custom formula even better? Or do you have any allergies you want us to avoid certain ingredients, or have any special requests for the manufacturing team? We can put that into consideration. And then we go into fill and finish and manufacture everything for you in our Sun Genomics GMP facility here in San Diego, California. And you get a 30-day supply shipped directly to your door, cold shipped, to keep the microbes alive. And that's sort of the second month. And then the third month, you'll get that same custom probiotic, and you can kind of think of us as your like inventory for your custom probiotic. And we keep it at Sun Genomics in our fridges and freezers. And then when it's ready, every month we'll ship it over to you. And then at month 5, you'll be able to take another gut test, and we ship that to you for free. And it's kind of up to you if you want to take the gut test and reformulate your probiotics, or you're good on your current custom probiotics and don't want to change it. You can. But what we found is really helpful is if you have an elevated organism like a SIBO or something like an E. coli that is grown really high, the first custom will really knock that down. And then the second gut test will help us formulate what is your custom probiotic for your baseline gut microbiome. And then you just stay on that, and hopefully you're feeling much better, and you stay connected to the team here, and we're always listening and trying to understand how we can support your gut health.
That's wonderful. Well, I know personally I'm very much looking forward to starting on the product. I did the tests, and I was kind of surprised at the results. I'm a healthy eater and everything. There was room for improvement, so I'm excited to see in a few months how I feel after taking the product. So I'll put a link below so that everybody can check it out and try it as well. So I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat today, and just tell us more about how essential our microbiome health is to our just overall quality of life. So thank you so much, Sunny.
Yeah, no problem at all. And I'm sure you eat your leafy greens, so you'll be back to a golden microbiome no time.
Yes, that's right. Sounds great. All right. Well, enjoy your day, and thanks again.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.